Single women who are 30 plus. How have your dating standards changed from your 20s? I'm no longer desperate to be in a relationship. I've witnessed so many bad relationships from people I know, and now I don't want to be with a man for the sake of being with one. I want one who makes my quality of life better. I've also made peace with the fact that I might not find such a man and realize my life is good at the moment, and in the grand scheme of things, being alone isn't such a bad thing. Because of that, I'm very intentional in who I date and have set boundaries that I have no intention of breaking. Story 2. We need to be friends too, not just romantic partners. If I'm going to settle down with someone, I don't need someone love bombing me every day and telling me I'm the most beautiful woman they've ever seen. I love the compliments when they do come, but a friend and a romantic partner is oh so important, and I had to learn that the hard way. When you have friendship, you have emotional intimacy. When you have emotional intimacy, you have a deep love and better connection, especially as you get older and physical attraction begins to fade. I found this also makes intimacy more meaningful and more comfortable too, a way for us to be closer, not just get off. I want both of us to have our own independence in the relationship too. We should have our own hobbies, friends, goals, and obligations, while still supporting each other while we walk our path. I'm not the demographic you asked to answer this question. I'm not single, but this is something I've gained in my relationship that I didn't know I needed in a partner in my 20s. Story 3. I've become a lot less romantic and a lot more practical. In my 20s, I definitely gave more of an ear to love conquers all and the idea of a whirlwind romance. I also would feel like I had to settle a lot more, so I didn't end up alone. I'd find myself ignoring red flags because who knows the next time someone will look my way. Now, in my 30s, I realized I'm pretty comfortable with being alone. If I consider dating someone, questions on whether it would positively affect my life and family come into play a lot more. I listen to my gut more and pay attention to red flags. Obtaining a romantic partner feels less mandatory and more like a luxury that would be nice to have, but I can live without it. Story 4. My material standards changed a lot. I was way more judgmental in my 20s. I wanted the uber successful and clean-cut man. I was so infatuated by success. There were plenty of men who wanted to play that game. Curated dinners, etc., etc. But as I got older, I wanted to be myself, and I knew the successful men wouldn't have the patience to see my true, cranky, bossy, and loud self. Now I'm so happy with someone who's messy, has a limp, and kisses me like I hung the moon. Feel like I can grow as much as I need to. Story 5. I'm a gay woman, and for me, at 31, I'm just now waking up. I'm realizing I've been treated like absolute crap by women I've been involved with for the most part, and that's on me for allowing it. But when you genuinely don't know any better, you don't even know you're being treated like crap. Now, no matter how much I may like the girl, if I'm not respected, I'm more willing to walk away. No mind games, no insults, no silent treatments. I told myself if a woman does this, especially early on, I have to stand up for myself. I have a hard time standing up to women. I just do. I'm getting better though. I think also because we grew up in a society where we are told women are more emotionally aware, attuned, intelligent, and mature, I always second-guessed myself in disagreements because what if I'm wrong? So I ended up apologizing when I shouldn't have. I let their narrative win, and only months later did I realize I'd been manipulated. I'm exhausted, frankly. How hard is it to find a woman that can control her temper, respect me, and make coming home feel like a safe space emotionally? Story 6. I didn't have any standards in my 20s, mostly because I didn't have anyone to show me how I deserved to be treated, so I just took whatever came my way. Now I've done a complete 180 from that. If you come into my life and make things more difficult for me, I'm out. If you have unhealed trauma, I'm done. I've gone to therapy and did the work. You, as a grown man, should do the same thing. I'm not here to build anyone up. I actually just stopped talking to a guy recently because of the way he spoke to his mom and how he spoke about his kids' mom. Basically, women in general. To me, that just tells me you don't really respect women, and I can only imagine how you'd speak about me when we have any disagreements. Story 7. I'm 30 and I've been single now for 2 years. After being married for 5 years in my 20s, to my mom, being single for 2 years is too long, and I should find someone, settle back down, and have kids. To me, I'm just now feeling like myself again, but I find it really terrifying to date because I know how intense things can get when you're with someone long-term. I've never experienced a healthy, stable, supportive partner, so I became that for myself, and I'm proud of the life I have now. I didn't really have standards when I was younger. I was desperate to be loved and wanted to take care of someone. Worked out great, clearly. I learned a lot from it, though. I don't know if my standards are high, necessarily. Have a job, your own place, be kind, intelligent in your own way, interesting to talk to, and ambitious or excited for the future. I used to be attracted to such a specific type physically, but that's changed now. With age or experience, I don't know. I'm mostly just a sucker for kind eyes now. But I think I embody those traits, so there's bound to be a man like that who I have a mutual attraction with, right? That'd be so cool. Overall, my standards have changed because I have standards now. And I'm protective over the life I've built in a way I never was when I was younger. Story 8. I never dated much because I wasn't allowed to socialize growing up, but I think in my 20s I had more rose-tinted glasses and an optimistic view on finding love than I do now. The first official partner turned out to be a registered offender in his late 20s, only got with me because I looked like a teenager and was naive enough to believe the nonsense he threw my way. Like how normal it was to have him hit me as hard as he did and that I couldn't leave him because no one else would want a girl with HSV. I was pure when we met. I still have nightmares of the schmuck and it's been 3 years since I got out. I've tried getting back into dating, but each time just ruined more of my self-image and esteem. I no longer believe that love even exists. Soulmates and the one are just fantasy that everyone in mainstream media cooks up to distract themselves from the bleak and harsh reality of life. All that's out there are soulless wannabe influencers or panderers and liars. You have to pick men or women in the gender war. Be 1,000 times % of politics, admit all the green flags, fight even for a scrap of real connection, and even that is fake when the person you meet online sees the real you. Everyone is only out to use you and throw you away, and I'm too broken and busted beyond repair. My therapist and friends have tried to get me back out there, to get me to live a little more, but I just don't see a point anymore. Story 9. When I was in my teens and early 20s, I was cool with dating dudes with kids. In fact, I was very open to it. I love kids and have a big heart, so I was open to sharing love with all the kids. Now in my mid-30s, I'm still childless myself. I'm no longer open to dating men with kids. I've seen more than my fair share of baby mama or ex-wife drama, and I don't need that chaos in my life. Lol. That's because where there's a child, 9 times out of 10, there's a woman still in love with that man. Or an ex-wife who's entitled to a significant portion of money each month. That if you marry the man will become the new wife's dad too. And I'm not the one to interfere in other people's family dynamics. Lol. And if there isn't a woman around, i.e. the man is a widower or the woman is an absent parent, then there are a host of emotional issues that you'd have to work through in addition to regular relationship issues. I'd rather be single for life and have peace in my house than to inherit drama and chaos that I did not create. I came from a super broken and toxic home as a kid. I'm not interested in replicating that as an adult. It would take a special man and a special kiddo to make me change my mind. Lol. But as of right now, I'm only open to dating men without any kids. And as someone who came from a single-parent home, I feel guilty saying that, but it's my new truth. Story 10. After getting married and having kids in my early to mid-20s, and then kicking my ex-husband out 4 years ago at 38, after he became cruel, I'm enjoying the peace of living alone with my teens. I refuse to live with a partner again or date anyone with young kids. I've happily enjoyed being single and have had a long-term friends with benefits relationship for almost 3 years, which is much less of a hassle. If I find someone who is great and didn't pull all the mental load on me, doesn't have young kids, or ever want to live together until maybe an old age, I'd consider dating them if they made my life better. However, I'm too happy with my life the way it is to settle for someone who will add stress to my life, which will also impact my physical health. I no longer have the tolerance to deal with drama or nonsense and already have to mother 2 teens 100% of the time. My physical preferences have also obviously changed from my very pretty, fit, preppy ex to a bearded, more manly guy with a dad bod. Story 11. I thought I could change men in my 20s. I would stick through dumb stuff, trying really hard to always be liked for fear of rejection. I create firm boundaries now, and it can lead to guys ghosting or being flaky, but I much prefer that now over wasting time. My boundaries now. My free time isn't inherently for you. Yes, let's spend some of it on things together, but on things we both like. I'm also entitled to time to just chill by myself. If you take that personally, you are not the one for me. We're all adults here who have spent many years cultivating friendships. I'm not going to drop my friends for you or to just hang out with your friends exclusively. If you have any kind of mental illness, from substance misuse to anxiety to bipolar disorder, you need to be in some kind of program where you're held accountable for your mental well-being. A romantic partner is the worst person to ask to be your therapist. It leads to awful enabling that hurts everyone. If you present with any of the fear of commitment red flags, like only ever being free on weeknights, refusing to make plans in advance, only wanting to hang out at your place, going radio silent for long periods of time, etc., and bye-bye. Story 12. Partner, long-term relationship. Now, but my standards were lower. I really just liked going out on dates and getting to meet people, and occasionally casual intimacy would happen. I really didn't have high expectations for dating. If someone was just about do it and go, I was like, whatever, yay or mostly nays. I'm bored and just got off work. I feel or always felt like a potential partner and I would work out our way into companionship, leading to a possible long-term relationship or marriage. But no, I did not do situationships and hated any relationships that gave mild acquaintances with benefits. If I were to become single again, I'd imagine it would be the same, and I wouldn't really take anyone seriously unless they're serious and we have chemistry and potential together. Story 13. I'm 50 and I've been married twice. I dated before these marriages, in between, and very little after. What I've learned, in my teens, I was so desperate to be liked, I put up with anything and everything. For context, this was the 1980s and this was before people reported mistreatment or Me Too. I was taught that I had to somehow defend myself, and if I didn't, it was my fault. 20s. My first marriage was to someone who was hiding a substance habit. I thought he just smoked a little grass socially, and once we were married, I found out he couldn't get through a day without something, and it didn't matter what. We had kids together, so I felt like I had to accept it until I finally left, with my parents' help. 30s. My second marriage was to someone who was deeply in the closet. He only owned up when he found out that I'd been on Reddit. As much as he didn't want to be there, he also didn't want to own up to his parents that he was gay, so he fought to stay in it, until he just stopped caring. He finally left, but immediately married another woman, a friend of mine, and waited until they were married and had a kid to tell her that he was in the closet. She called me and asked if I had known and why I didn't tell her. 40s. I found that men of my own age were either bitter divorcees, overwhelmed widowers, or not interested in relationships, ever. I was shocked to see men on dating apps openly cheating and putting it in their bios. Some of the bolder ones had photos of themselves with their wives, including wedding photos in their profile. Also discovered that many 40-ish men had discovered their backsides and wanted to be pleasured in the back door. I didn't mind, but not enough of them cleaned their butts. 47. 47 was my final straw. I finally met a slightly older guy. He was nice. We spent lovely afternoons together. Then one morning I woke up to my phone blowing up with text saying, "She knows." Turns out he lied about being single, and his wife found out because she went to her OBGYN and found out he'd given her an STI, which meant he'd also given it to me. And I've been single ever since. Story 14. When I was in my 20s, I was looking for passion, chemistry that could ignite a spark, like in the movies. It seemed to me that if there was no violent emotions, then this wasn't love. Alarm signals? Well, who doesn't have them, I thought. The main thing is that it should be fun and not boring. Now that I'm over 30, I've started to look at things differently. The main thing is emotional maturity, respect, and the ability to solve problems without drama and manipulation. It has become important to me that a person is reliable, honest, and doesn't carry a bag of unresolved problems with them. I used to think that I was setting a high standard for myself, but now I realize that the real standards are when you know what you want and what you definitely don't want. Story 15. I'm 31, and my standards are pretty much the same. In my culture, we date to marry, and I want to honor that. At the current time, I don't date, and I'm not actively searching. I wanted something that would last a lifetime, but let's be honest. A man with high values who's honest and loyal is a gem hard to find these days. There's a good portion of the men in the West who are only into fooling around, short-lived relationships, and nothing serious, and honestly, I don't have time for that, nor do I want that. I'm not interested in sleeping around. It's just not me. I'm the type of person who would be content with the same person all my life. If they aren't seeking anything serious, then I won't waste my time with them. Story 16. I love having my own space, the quiet, my own hobbies and interests. I love my freedom. In my 20s, I had relationships where I was being controlled, used, made myself smaller and quieter so as to not upset anyone. I was made to feel that I was selfish for wanting to do things or even liking different things than my boyfriend. I was often made to feel bad about my body or how I dressed or did makeup. I was outstayed in the relationship. Not realizing it at the time, but that's what it was. I was gaslighted to think I was always in the wrong and I was being difficult to love. I was a people pleaser and felt a lot of anxiety. In my 30s, after a bad breakup, I got cheated on. I ended up living alone and single for several years. In that time, I was not interested in dating. Trust issues, but guys would constantly try. I had male friends trying to force themselves on me. When I rejected them, I was often called rude things and even stalked. 3 separate guys tried to manipulate me into dating them by threatening to end it all. Even in my place of work, I was mistreated. I was honestly just so sick of men. It brought me nothing but misery. What I loved was having my own little space that I kept neat and had my own things. I didn't have to clean someone else's messes. I got to decide what I wanted to do with my days, with my life. I refound a passion that had been pushed down for years and followed that first into hobbies and later to employment. Funny thing is, now in my 40s, I've been in a relationship for 5 years with a man who contacted me via social media. I was hesitant and actually told him no when he, very nicely, asked me for a date, after chatting with me for weeks about mutual interests. I was surprised that he accepted my refusal and continued to just chat with me. When he asked a second time, I took a risk. He's honestly everything I could have wished for. I trust him. He treats me like a human, like a friend, builds me up and doesn't try to change me. I still have my hobbies, and actually we lived in separate flats as neighbors for a few years because we both like our own space and peace. We are only now talking of moving together and figuring it out. Story 17. I'm just way more confident. In my 20s, if a guy was hard to talk to and have a conversation with, I assumed it was my fault and would keep trying. Now I recognize it's either their own social deficits or a lack of interest in communicating and move on without a thought. In my 20s, I attracted so many creeps or players due to my own lack of confidence and young-looking face. Now I demand eye contact and respect. I no longer put any man on a pedestal and just see them for exactly who they are. I no longer mistake apathy for being an enigma. Therapy has also helped a lot. Story 18. In my 20s, I was pretty naive. I didn't know that the way my family had talked to me growing up was pretty emotionally cruel. I took all kinds of treatment in my 20s, including verbal and physical cruelty. I dated guys with no job, no car, or who didn't pay child support. Now I pretty much only date people who are in a similar lifestyle in regards to work ethic. Ideas about saving money, respectful speech, etc. Calling names, threatening, putting me down, or taking your bad day out on me are unacceptable to me now. Plenty of people out there who won't treat me like that, and I would never treat someone else like that. Story 19. I think I actually started demanding a bit more of myself. I'm sure that my demands on partners have also developed, but I think, most of all, I sort of became good at recognizing that maybe dating and being with someone is not really for me because of my attachment style and problems. So while I have always kept to myself and never dated much, now I think of it less as me waiting for something and more as me not really being in the moment to make healthy choices. I think I just became better at knowing what is best for me. Story 20. I realized that a lot of my earlier standards were shaped by commercialized, consumer-driven ideas of romantic love. Getting older shifted that. I put much more energy into building a relationship with myself first, and that changed how I see love. Now I ask what actually works for me as an individual, not what's been sold to me or expected of me. What works for one person doesn't always work for another. And at this point in my life, I'd rather be in something honest and real than perform a version of love that looks good on the outside but feels empty on the inside. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 21. My close friend or coworker is 60 but has a smoking figure, like better than mine at 20, and amazing skin and looks 40. Unmarried, never married or in dates. She doesn't want to be a mom or a maid. She's much more willing to walk away. No games. Just be honest. No drama. If it's casual, fine. She's not 23 and confusing things. Let's get together and do what adults do and watch movies. I think she likes her alone time. She has dated men long-term over the years that I've known her and isn't eager to move in or move them in. Frequent sleepovers are okay, but she seems quite happy with her space and her routine, and isn't offended or broken up if things don't work out. That's really the kicker here. She isn't insecure or seeking approval. She's fine accepting things as they are and doesn't second-guess herself when things get weird. Even when she's told me that in hindsight she could have done X or Y, she isn't broken up about it. She's confident and secure. Younger men are more fun and interesting. Older men have more maturity, but have more hang-ups according to her. Men, beware. Lots of women realize their life is better and easier without someone who makes their existence a hassle. I can manage a schedule and clean all on my own. I don't need to add another person on top of it. Be helpful and add something, or be irrelevant. Lots of women realize they're much happier without a man because, sadly, many men aren't raised properly and don't add anything to a woman's life. That's not universal, of course. My husband is the calendar manager and the workhorse, and we are an active partnership. I'd be lost without him. We clean and manage things as a team. Sadly, many moms don't raise their boys to be useful. Be useful or go away, please. Story 22. This is partially a tangent, but it may partially explain why so many people are unsatisfied in relationships today. I read this once somewhere, but can't find the proper source. And I am aware of the massive caveat of women and men experiencing this differently. It's related to the idea of third spaces. It would be too long, but places where most people met regularly that weren't family or work, like church or the US table, the bowling alley. In the not-so-recent past, your family was one of the places you spent time in, with pretty well-defined dynamics. You didn't necessarily have many more good friends, but you had a lot more people you just hung out with casually, and often who weren't your coworkers. So there are certain boundaries or dynamics present, or spouses, ditto. And a lot of the emotional work was done there. You didn't need your significant other to be also your therapist, best friend, share your hobbies, etc., because those services were provided by your third space community, including things like help with moving, babysitting a child, etc., which sounds almost bad today because we have societally shifted to the idea that your significant other must be the perfect match for you. Otherwise, it won't work. But that is the problem, because a single person can't be all of those things. Even in perfect relationships, there may be bad phases and suddenly you lost your BFF because you have no one to play board games with or whatever. I recommend reading on third spaces because it's a very interesting topic. Most people don't know about it, and a lot of negative societal shifts can be looked at through that lens. Story 23. After realizing everyone and their dog was right about my gross age gap relationship where I wasted most of my 20s and some of my 30s, raising a much older man's kid, thinking I was so mature when I was really just so naive like everyone said, I was filling a role as an always available for his needs, romantic partner, housekeeper, and kid raiser. I took a big gap to have my own house and space and then met someone that felt like my high school friends, the people I loved being around as a kid. So far, it's been a year and a bit, and it's everything I wanted. Head rubs, someone to spend time with, someone to laugh with, someone who validates me, checks in with how I'm doing, doesn't mind being there on the bad days, truly makes me feel like I live with my best friend. That's the ticket. Find your best friend. I know it's cliche, but it changes everything. Story 24. In my 20s, I had the realization that the majority of my self-worth was being derived from someone else wanting me. So I forced myself to be single for a while, like years. It was really strange at first, but it has made me so much more comfortable with myself. It's now easier for me to spot and walk away from red flags, and also it's helped me identify my red flags and become a better partner. I used to want to speedrun every relationship, no matter what, which was incredibly bad for both people involved. Now I can go at a pace that allows me to get to know someone in a normal way and lets us both feel safe. A long-winded way to say my standard is now a slow burn. Story 25. I'm not single, but have had a major shift in my dating habits since my last relationship. I put up with a lot of nonsense from my ex. A lot. Every weak boundary I'd say was crossed and stomped on by him, and he gaslit me for a very long time, making me feel crazy. My standards have changed. Boundaries are non-negotiable. I don't have time to waste on letting someone hurt me over and over on purpose. I don't have time to raise another grown man. My time is precious, and I'm already busy. I'm happy alone. I've learned to love myself and love my hobbies. I invest in myself with higher education and constant continuing education for work. My career is important to me. Not so important that it rules my life, but important that it gives me independence. I have a happy and full life, and I don't need anyone to distract me from that. Only add to it. If they aren't adding positive things into my life, they're not worth it. Story 26. I'm not single anymore, but when I was, I became much more ruthless about second chances in online dating. There's an abundance of choice, and if something irks me the wrong way early on, delete, block, on to the next one. Most people get discarded in the texting stage. Any weird innuendos, any creepy mentions out of nowhere, any disrespect, even if it's veiled, any negging or lack of interest in me. In the past, I let so many things slide in the text that later always ended poorly. I never had a decent potential partner come out of a crappy conversation. It's a good practice to imagine something over text to be told in person by a stranger. If it would be horribly inappropriate in person, then it's inappropriate over text too. Eventually, I learned to read through the lines and notice patterns of behavior that might seem innocuous but would indicate that I should move on to the next person. Story 27. I'm married, but I'd still like to join this discussion, as I have a lot of thoughts about my dating standards. 10 years ago, I think physical appearance and charisma were the most important qualities for me. These days, I value safety, emotional support, and a sense of shared responsibility in a relationship. While I am fully responsible for my own life, I sometimes, just like my husband, need support and the feeling of being cared for. And I think that, just like when I was in my 20s, some things haven't changed. I still need my space, and he respects it. That's one of the most important things for me in any relationship I have, including my friendships. Story 28. I only recently started dating again after taking most of my 30s to work on myself. I'm very happy where I am, but thought it might be fun to try dating after so long. Doing so, I found out what I really want is more close friends than a romantic partner. I really only tolerate people in my life now that enhance it in some way, and I would hope that I make their lives better in turn. I've also gotten the feeling the few times I've gone out that some of the guys I've tried dating seem to think I must be desperate because I'm approaching 40 and still single, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. Sadly, this has left a bitter taste. I'm independent and more than capable of taking care of myself. If I go out to dinner with someone and they decide to leave for some reason, I'm going to stay and enjoy my dinner and be perfectly happy doing so. Just kind of sucks to miss out on the conversation. Story 29. I actually didn't really have standards in my 20s. As long as he was nice to me and interested, I called him my boyfriend. As an attractive young woman, this led to a couple of underwhelming long-term relationships. Now in my 30s, I have a 3-point criteria. They need to be between the ages of 30 and 40. I dated a guy 10 years older than me for 8 years, and as a 33-year-old, I can't imagine dating a 23-year-old. They need to be motivated. Hopefully this translates to being tolerable to live with as well. You need to have intellectually stimulating conversations with them. I couldn't care less what they look like, what their gender identity is, or what they have, but I'm damn sure not trading my peace for a partner if they aren't an active partner in my life, sharing an emotional and domestic labor while growing alongside me. I'm also not really actively looking either because life is good. I'm not convinced a relationship will improve things, but maybe I'm just bitter. Story 30. I value emotional intelligence, independence, and the ability to be vulnerable so much more than I used to. That's what I look for now. Or used to, I guess. I kind of lost interest in relationships lately. I've always been drawn to the quiet, melancholic types, not the life of the party kind. When it comes to the financial side, it's obviously important that someone can support themselves and knows how to handle money. I've got that covered for myself, and I expect the same from a partner. I care about cleanliness, but I actually like it when someone's a little bit messy because I am too. And kindness really matters to me. They have to love animals. Story 31. I'm not quite the demographic, but I didn't date at all in my 20s. Low self-worth or self-esteem or poor mental health, and I'm now married in my 30s. Once I got a lot of my mental and emotional health to a managed and comfortable space, I dove into dating, realizing that what I told myself in my 20s, I'm too gross and unwell to be loved, might have been a defense mechanism and that maybe I actually would like to go through a life with a partner. The best thing I learned during that time of dating, know what you're looking for and be upfront about it. Also, know what your longer-term goals are and make sure they're in alignment with your potential partner. Do you want or expect to move? Do you want kids? Marriage? What are your values? You can be head over heels for someone, but if you don't want similar things out of life, you might encounter more difficulty down the road as a partnership. Story 32. In my 20s, I was surviving. I was grasping at what I could get, with my self-worth down the drain. Since my last relationship when I was 20, I haven't been with anyone. I've since been longing for companionship, but I worked on myself enough to know that I shouldn't settle for less. All my life I've been pleasing people, putting their needs above mine, and burning myself to keep the little I had, but no more. If I don't find someone who has also worked on themselves and knows what they want, besides being mature and able to communicate, I don't want it. I've taken care of everyone around me, putting their needs before mine. All I want is someone that wants to take care of me in exchange. Single since I was 20, I'm nearly 32 now, and I want nothing less than what I need and want. If that means I'm single for the rest of my life, so be it. Story 33. The bar is so low that even having a man who has self-awareness, a sense of accountability, respects you and your boundaries, makes real effort in the relationship, considers you in the relationship, does what he says, and other basic decency you should give to a partner is considered too high of a standard. And these men would have the audacity to tell you, despite respectfully and lovingly communicating clearly over and over again what you want and need in a relationship, that you're making things hard for them. Dude, it's hard because I'm raising a mirror to your face and you can't stand the fact that you can't meet very basic standards in a relationship. You just want a convenient woman who'll be okay being treated badly and still give you loyalty and care. People who lack self-awareness and accountability will always have trouble being better and growing up. Plus the fragile egos. Damn, I ain't fixing that for them. Better to be single than have a man-child in my life. Mind you, these are men in their late 30s and early 40s. Crazy quality of men these days. Story 34. Yes, I'm 40-ish. I've become more traditional in the sense that men and women can have roles in a relationship. Before you flame me, just know that I was raised by a happy housewife and a dad who liked to provide. This worked for our family, and my siblings went on to marry and manage similar household structures. Also, let me reiterate that I mean more traditional, not literally traditional, meaning that there's room for deviation. I feel validated because the last guy I dated had a strong moral compass. For you Marvel fans, think Captain America, because that's what his friends called him. His grandfather was his idol, so he felt like women should be protected, and he was the type to always do the right thing, even when people weren't looking. I nicknamed him the Union Leader, lol, because that was his energy. He was self-assured and managed to always complete the things he set out to do. He was completely trustworthy as a leader, to the point that if he ever told me one day that we were moving to Alaska, I would just start packing because he owned a level of responsibility that was something I'd never witnessed before. Please don't ask why we're not still together. I'll say this. We don't hate each other, it just could not work for reasons out of our control. Anyway, so my standards have changed from being borderline feminist to only dating men who prefer to happily take the lead in a lot of ways. Story 35. I would say for me the difference is that in my 30s, I'm less concerned with the superficial and more concerned, perhaps a bit too concerned, with long-term compatibility. I'm not so quick to dismiss a lady based on looks or differences of opinion on music, movies, etc. Another thing, however, is that most women I know in their 30s have children, and dating single mothers is its own ball of wax. I like kids, but if you date a woman with kids at all, like it or not, you will be a part of their lives in some capacity. They realize this, so women with kids tend to be more choosy. They generally only get serious with a man who has his life together, a good job, not clerking a register at the local gas station, a better sense of emotional self-worth, and so on. In my 30s, I don't go to bars to meet women. I go to other things, such as concerts or the library. Story 36. I'm a guy in my early 30s, and the big difference is in the number and quality of women I can get. I'd say the early 30s is the Goldilocks zone for men. You still have your looks, fitness, health, youthful energy, etc. If you take care of yourself, yeah, you have more status, money, and maturity than most men in their 20s. You're well into your career, and you're able to offer stability that many younger guys can't. Your dating pool is also larger. All the women from your early 20s who liked older guys now like you, along with women from your own age group and those that are slightly older. Women in their 30s generally have a much tougher time, unless they're willing to date younger guys. Their dating pool has gotten smaller, and if they do go after younger guys, or even guys their own age, they are competing with women in their 20s. They're under time pressure in terms of getting married and having children while they're still able, and the cost of an unsuccessful relationship is much higher than it was in their 20s, as they have less time to find a new guy and have children. This assumes they want marriage or children. So, in summary, when you're in your 20s, women hold all the cards when it comes to dating. When you're in your 30s, men pretty much hold all the cards. True love can strike at any time in one's life. However, apart from that, I would recommend that women date guys a little older than them and get serious about marriage in their mid-20s. I've recommended for guys to hold off until their late 20s to early 30s. Of course, everybody's situation is unique to them. Story 37. I'm a 40-year-old woman here. Dating in my early 20s was horrible. I was really insecure about who I was, how my body looked, and the sorry state of my education. I married at 25 and thought dating was a horrible memory I would never have to deal with again. Then came esophageal cancer. So I began dating again at 37, and it was very different. I still got a little nervous on first dates and whatnot, but generally was not tripping about being chubby or not pretty enough. I was comfortable with who I had become and knew that if a guy I was dating thought I was fat or dumb or whatever, then he's simply not right for me and I can move on. I think having had a successful, happy marriage played into this a ton, but I also think maturity made it easier. Obviously, I don't know how it is for guys, but as a woman, dating was much easier in my 30s. I know a lot of women at work who are in their early and mid-20s and stressing out so much that they aren't finding love. They think that turning 30 is going to basically turn their carriages into pumpkins and it's all over after that. I try to tell them that life is just fine at 30 and beyond, and that men do, believe it or not, find women over 30 totally attractive. They aren't buying it, but they'll see when they get there. Surely this is getting buried, but if anyone's curious, I'm in a long-term relationship now, so not dating anymore. I hope not to know what dating is like in your 40s, but I'm ready for anything. Story 38. In my opinion, there is a huge difference. The woman you date at 30 should have already gone out and experienced life on her own, whatever she wanted to do. Travel, test different jobs, etc. Everyone needs to experience life on their own first, because love doesn't mean you complete the other person. It means you complement them. The healthiest relationships stem from one another being a complete person, meaning each individual has found themselves prior to meeting. There's nothing wrong with exploring or wanting to be with different people or making mistakes and stupid decisions. In fact, those are imperative to self-growth. That is what ages 13 to 30 are for. Not to mention, as a 20-year-old, almost no one is mature enough to handle a relationship the way we all perceive one should be like. So get it out of your head. You will get hurt, emotionally. Dating after 30 should be simple. It should be the easiest thing you've ever done. After slaying men or women for years beforehand, you have highlighted the attributes you would like in a significant other and noted the ones you will be running from. Story 39. I'm 31 and was divorced in my 20s, but I'm also engaged with my new partner. My first marriage was all about feeling that spark. It was all about the shallow things. And looking for my new partner, it was all about who I can do life with. We'll be there for the good, the bad, and the ugly, and be my best friend through it all. It's an agreement that no matter how hard life gets, we're there for each other and can get through everything. I've never been happier since I switched those priorities. Story 40. I just don't know how to date, if I'm being very honest. In my only relationship from 17 to 30 and then single ever since, I feel like I've missed my turn now or had it and that's it. I don't know how to really become more than an acquaintance from age 35 to other females as a friendship. How do I try and potentially romantically date someone? So my standards, I don't know if they've changed. I've just never been on a date with someone other than that one relationship. The older I get, the more embarrassing it sounds. Story 41. I look at guys more based on if they take care of themselves versus initial attraction. My standards are higher. You need to have a stable job and income. I'm not your mom. If you don't know how to clean up after yourself or are a cranky schmuck, it's not worth my time. I find way too many guys are focused on intimacy. Intimacy is fine, but I prioritize forming a friendship. I'm past the casual thing age. I can take care of myself, but I'm happy to be with you if we can grow together. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.